I was like in shock when I got up there, and here's somebody that seems like they're rock solid and they've got this background. To me, it was really like impactful experience of, hey, I'm working for this organization and there's real challenges out there, and how do we make it better?
At the end of the day, I remind people that it's human performance. We have to be human.
Because there was an opportunity to make decisions quickly, and they gave me the freedom to make those decisions based on my experience, we ended up being very successful.
I'm Dr. Amy Athey. As a licensed psychologist and performance expert, working with elite athletes, C-suite executives, and high performers operating in some of the most demanding environments, I've seen what it truly takes to perform when it matters most. From supporting members of the Naval Special Warfare community to advising leaders in high-stakes, high-pressure situations, one truth remains consistent. The tools that drive performance are the same. You prepare in a way that allows you to show up ready when the moment arrives. Each week, I'll share practical tools and insights to help you strengthen how you think, lead, and perform. Welcome to Still Evolving. Today's conversation lives inside two of the most misunderstood parts of leadership, which are the role of vulnerability at the top and the way crisis reveals what a leader is actually made of. Both get talked about in the abstract all the time. Both look very different when you actually have lived them. Let me start with vulnerability, because there is a version of it that has taken over the leadership conversation that I find genuinely unhelpful. It is the packaged, well-timed, carefully calibrated share that happens on a stage or in a keynote, and it is performed as vulnerability without carrying any of the actual weight. Real vulnerability is different. It is what happens when a leader is caught by a moment they did not script, when the story from the front row lands harder than expected, or when the tears show up before composure catches up. The leaders who have learned the trust of the people around them are almost always the ones who have been seen inside a moment like that, not the ones who have practiced looking accessible. In my book, Moment Ready, which is out this month, I write about connection as one of the 4 capacities that allow high performers to show up well when the moments that matter most arrive. The reason connection is so essential is that relationships are the true agent of change. People rarely shift their behavior because of a memo or a metric or a well-reasoned argument on a slide. They shift because they are motivated by the people they love, because they are inspired by a leader they believe in, or because they do not want to let their teammates down. That kind of pull only exists within real relationships, and real relationships require the leader to be seen as a human being, not just as an office. Vulnerability is what makes that visibility possible. It is the door that allows connection to walk through. The second half of today's conversation lives in the territory of crisis and the philosophy of never letting a good crisis go to waste. What I've come to see is that crisis is not just a threat to be managed. It is a compressor. It shortens the time between decisions. It collapses the distance between leaders and the people they serve, and it strips away the pretenses that healthier moments allow us to hold on to. The leaders who understand this treat crisis as an accelerator of connection, not a distraction from it. They lean in harder to the relationships that matter. They let themselves be seen in the middle of the mess, and they earn a level of trust in a few weeks that would have taken years to build in ordinary circumstances. That is the line of today's guest, and he has lived it repeatedly across sectors, cities, and decades. My guest today is Tino Mantella, and Tino brings a leadership journey that few people have matched. He currently serves as Chief Strategy Officer at Relevance, a global technology services company, and he holds partner and leadership roles across retained executive search, Tier 4 advisors, Tier 4 group. That range is a reflection of a career built on flexibility, curiosity, and the belief that the underlying skill of leadership travel across every environment. Before this chapter of his work, he led the Technology Association of Georgia for 12 years, taking that organization from 350 members to 36,000 and building it into the largest technology trade association in North America. He also has served as CEO of the Arthritis Foundation, president of the YMCA of Metropolitan Chicago, and in senior leadership roles that placed him at the center of some of the most consequential community crises of his time. His work has been recognized with induction into both the nonprofit Times Power and Influence Top 50 and the Georgia Technology Hall of Fame. And he continues to serve on multiple boards, teaching future leaders how to navigate the moments that will define them. Tino, welcome to Still Evolving. I'm grateful to have you here.
Thanks, Amy. It's great to be here. I appreciate the opportunity.
So your journey has flexed between sectors, if you will. You started a nonprofit, but certainly now in for-profit organizations. As an executive leader, can you share a bit about what most people often get wrong about the difference in leading, perhaps, in those two sectors? Perhaps there's more similarity than I'm assuming, but I welcome learning from you and that experience.
Yeah, so I think what you're saying is, how do people feel about nonprofit and for-profit? And, there's a few things I would say about that. First of all, there's a perception, I think, by most that running a for-profit business is more complicated than a nonprofit business. That's being that I've done both, that's absolutely not correct for the most part. It really just depends on the setting, the environment, the kinds of things that people are focusing on, what they're going through. Certainly, running organizations now in the nonprofit space. Let's just say that they're federally funded. I'm on a couple boards that they're mostly funded by government. And they're getting notices that, they're getting cut 25%, 50%, 100% of some of the funding. So they have to be able to pivot. They have to figure out ways to raise money. They have to figure out how to move from being in a position where they're getting all of their money from the government. It's like, oh, all right, we have to do fundraising. We have to do fee for service. We have to figure out how to build a board that can give and get dollars. We have to continue to look at other options on federal funding and community grants and so on and so forth. But that's not taking anything away. Obviously, I could say the same thing from the business perspective, being in the for-profit world. That there's obviously challenges there. AI now is changing jobs. How the whole change in technology is accelerating. And I was just doing an article on human-centered leadership, and probably no more important time now than thinking about people and how to keep the people not fearful of what's coming, but how to embrace it, how to get the community together in terms of the collective voice of the employees, how to keep your employees, together and fend off a lot of turnover, all those sorts of things. So, both of them are very similar in a lot of ways. You have financial differences, certainly, some, money goes to owner's equity in the for-profit world, and in the nonprofit, you're driving funding back into the business. But that doesn't mean, and I've always said this because you're running organizations, big nonprofits. The Arthritis Foundation was a $160 million operation, not huge, but you're not supposed to lose money. What you're supposed to do is create some kind of a cushion. So we always had a rule, and it's not my rule. I think it's pretty much standard fare that 50% of your operating budget should be in a reserve. So if you have a $100 million annual operating budget, you want to have $50 million in reserve for some of the things that I just mentioned in terms of being ready for those changes. So both are complex, nothing simple. They can both be fun. They can both be very much stressful. So I'll stop there.
No, thank you for providing that context. I'm also interested, you've had a heck of a journey in leading in both those sectors. When perceived crises occur, right? And oftentimes many will say that leadership is the most crucial in those crises. And it's my own research that we found that crisis leadership skills were the most potent when we look at overall leadership effectiveness. You've said that you've never let a good crisis go to waste. Can you share more about how that philosophy has shown up for you across the many crises that perhaps you've led through?
Well, I'll give two quick examples. One is when I ran the YMCA Metropolitan Chicago. It was during the time of the Rodney King riots, and Mayor Daley called me directly and said, "Hey, I'm concerned we're going to have a challenge this summer. There was already, Chicago, like a lot of big cities, had a lot of gang violence. And so we were happy to take on a leadership role of trying to solve that. And what we did is we brought in maybe 50 different nonprofits and some for-profits as well into our organization. We had several meetings and we made a decision around how we were going to address it. One of the things we did, and why I took the lead in this, is we hired fringe gang members. And I say fringe because you can't really hire the hardcore center gang members, but those that are not quite at that level. And we hired them to take graffiti off buildings, which, granted, they may have put the graffiti on the buildings, but nevertheless, we hired them to take the graffiti off. And so they had some prestige, they had some feeling about their worth, they were making some money. And in that particular area, it was Logan Square in Chicago. Some people may know that. There were 16 gang-related murders the summer before, and when we did the program, for a lot of environmental reasons, but there were no gang-related murders that next year. So, again, we grasped the opportunity. We took the leadership role. Second is very different. So when I ran the Technology Association of Georgia, I took the role. We didn't have a lot of money left. We have about a 3-month burn rate, but I saw the potential. And the board was down from about 20 board members to 5, and they were all pretty arm weary. So when I came in and had a bunch of ideas, they said, yeah, do whatever it takes to get the job done. So why I'm saying that is the difference between that and you're coming into a very strong organization, everything's set, the board feels like don't rock the boat, come in. So we were in crisis, and they gave me a lot of room to move. I kept them involved, but because there was an opportunity to make decisions quickly, and they gave me the freedom to make those decisions based on my experience, we ended up being very successful. We grew the organization from 350 members to 36,000 over 12 years and became the largest tech trade association in North America. So it was a fun ride, but it all started with a crisis. It's like, yeah, this organization might not be around in 3 months, 6 months. So do what you have to do to get the job done.
Wow. You come across as very authentic and sharing the stories, right? And certainly no one's perfect, right? We've all made missteps along the way. How do you distinguish performing authenticity, the performative, from actually being it? Where did you learn to be able to show up as grounded and being able to motivate, engage volunteers? I mean, much in the nonprofit sector is going to be a community effort. But how do you distinguish that performative from the real, actually being it, and maybe with the influences along your way?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for saying that. I appreciate it. I try to act in that way and walk my talk. Probably like a lot of us that had good childhoods, I owe a lot to my parents who, certainly were, I never heard them say anything negative about a community or people. They always tried to be helpful. My dad and mom together built a small business. So I took that with me. And then when I went to college, I worked at a home for, at the time they called it neglected kids. They weren't necessarily in trouble enough to go into incarceration, but they were in trouble enough to probably leave their family and come into a different environment for a while. And we took them through, a variety of activities. And it showed me, as I've always learned, people are people, and try to be kind and generous and, have an impact on people of all levels, whether they're up above you in terms of position or, whether they're, poor people in communities in the Y. Going back to that experience, I had a chance to, we were the largest provider of single occupancy housing in the Chicago area, I think in the state. And so, it was a pretty poor population. They were a step above being homeless. But by the same token, we were in wealthy communities as well. So you had the, opportunity to work with all. So, I think it's just being authentic is something probably that in some ways you grow into. Mm-hmm. And it's grounded in, how you've been brought up and other places that you've, had impact from mentors and teachers and things like that. As you said, that's not, if we had time to talk about failures and things, I've certainly had plenty of those as well. And I've always said you learn a lot, more from failures than you do from successes. I had a more of a challenging time when I ran the Arthritis Foundation because I came into it not really studying the organization in terms of it being a federated model. By that, I mean, we had 55 chapters all over the country, and they had their own presidents and their own boards. And I was the national CEO. So I was trying to run it like a corporation. This looks like a good idea. I've got some buy-in. Let's do it. And I'd always get, pushback is, well, I'm in California or Texas or wherever, and my board voted no. And then I'd have to fly out there and try to straighten it out. But I never did quite straighten it out to the level that, I thought I should. But when I took those experiences and I started in Technology Association in Georgia, we created 36 different special interest groups. And I really knew through my arthritis experience how to engage those groups so that they would feel like they're part of the organization. We made rules like how does the funding get split up and what, and everybody voted on it. Every chairman was on a committee that we brought together quarterly. So those were all things that I would never have done if I didn't have the challenging arthritis experience where, in hindsight, I should have tried to bring more of the CEOs together in small groups. I think some people, leaders, call them kitchen cabinets or whatever, to create different strategies and all. So good learning, sometimes learning the hard way.
Well, certainly, I appreciate you relating the impact that from your family to the communities you serve have made on your approach, not just in strategy, but in leadership. I guess I will retell a story that you shared with me and hopefully you can expand. But I remember also you sharing on a Y employee whose two sons had been killed in gang violence and the impact that made on you. Would you be willing to expand and share more on how that moment perhaps even still shapes how you lead today?
Yeah, you know a lot of people you meet, and this particular woman that worked for me at one of the, I think it was the Pilsen Y, one of the Ys, inner city Ys in the community, and she had, I'd always try to visit all the Ys and say hi to the staff and the members and all, and she worked the front desk, so she was always very pleasant, and then we were asked to speak at an event. I wasn't, as the CEO, sometimes you don't know what's going to be happening, but it's like, come on over here and speak. So I'm like, okay, I'll be there. And it was at the New City Y, I remember, which is the one right near Cabrini Green at the time, which was a very challenged area with a lot of history. And so this woman, the same woman that worked at the desk, got to speak before me. I wasn't sure what she was going to talk about. And she spoke about two of her sons that had got murdered or died in gang violence. I was like in shock when I got up there, and I was pretty emotional. I mean, tears were in my eyes, and it was just a sincere feeling that, here's somebody that seems like they're, rock solid, and they've got this background in these communities sometimes that, are rough. And, for me, it was sincere, but I think, sometimes going to these, and I was an athlete in college, and you try to be, still a tough guy, whatever.
Yeah.
Women do the same things, not just men, but, being there and then showing emotion. I think that changed how staff felt about me, and that I was real and vulnerable. And there's, I don't know why, I just thought of the episode of Cheers where people know Norm was crying because he had to fire people, and they'd come into the bar, and then he, wherever he was working, they'd fire him. And then, they all felt sorry for him, and they, appreciated that he was, emotional about it. That's not why I did it, but it was like, the very sincere, and it, means a lot. So, and sometimes I think people are not showing their vulnerability because they have responsibilities, and if they show emotion to a certain level, then it's perceived as a negative. I suppose it can be at some points, but to me, it was really like impactful experience of, they're just kind of bottled up in terms of, hey, I'm working for this organization and there's real challenges out there, and how do we, help to make it better? Absolutely.
At the end of the day, I remind people that it's human performance, right? Like, we have to be human. And certainly I appreciate the role of composure. I talk a lot about that in my upcoming book. It is a critical component, and yet also everything in moderation, right? Like, yes. If you're really disconnected from your own emotions, first off, you're missing out on a ton of data that could be really informative into your choices, your decisions. But also, like, you lose that ability for connection. You lose that ability to really be relatable and sharing whatever vision or wherever you want to take the organization. So, well, thank you. I know I put you on the spot on that one. But...
No. And just to double down on what you said, I think I'm interested in certainly reading your book. But I do think if you don't show vulnerability, sincere vulnerability, then you're somewhere, like if you're a CEO of a company, it's a lot of times really hard for people to talk to you and to relate to you, because they're thinking that you're up there and you're not open to a conversation, and then you're not hearing the things that you probably need to hear most. So, I think that's what you're saying too.
Absolutely. I mean, the communication goes both ways, right? So if you can be real and sharing, it's likely to be mirrored back.
Yeah. You have a suggestion box, but nobody puts suggestions in it because they're afraid what happens.
Right. Why is this empty this week? So we talked a lot about the your nonprofit experience and that chapter in your journey, as well as for-profit. But another aspect in your journey has been taking on fractional leadership roles. And this is an area that we haven't dived into as much on our pod. And so I would love, since you're here, to pick your brain a little bit and learn from you about, are there any lessons learned or considerations when you are in a fractional model compared to perhaps a traditional C-suite?
Yeah. So first of all, and I didn't double check the statistic, but I know it's over 50% of the population at certain ages are now doing more than one job. And sometimes, there's the poor populations have to do more than one job, but I'm not necessarily referring to that. I just think there's a movement to be able to be more flexible with your work. And for me, it was like, so just a level set here. I'm Chief Strategy Officer for Relevance. I'm President of Retained. I'm a partner at Tier 4 Advisors. I'm a partner at Tier 4 Group, which retains a division of that. And then I'm also a partner at TurkNet Leadership Group. So I wanted to do all that. It's been a lot of fun to come into one culture, The Relevance team is great, purpose-driven, mostly Indian population, 1,400 people headquartered in Alpharetta, Georgia, but they have 1,200 people in Chennai, India. And then retained as executive search, and it's part of Tier 4 group. More younger team, more women, much more diversity. So going into these two different settings as an example, it's fun for me, and it's a good experience for me, and it's also challenging me to kind of shift gears. So I think that there's now, I don't think, just statistics show that there is a movement towards this fractional work, and not everybody's cut out for that, but I for some people it's you get to experience different things, different revenue streams, opportunities to make an impact in a variety of different ways. The last thing I'll say about that is I like to challenge myself, and I believe that through these experiences, there's certain leadership skills that you can take with you everywhere, and you're going to apply those again and again. And because, frankly, I say this to to everybody that's listening, I'm not a technologist, although I've run technology organizations and been part of, had a strategy for an organization that focuses on technology. So, I know I have to surround myself with great people in that area, but it is learning and it's experience, and you provide the skills of working with people and communication and business development, sales, strategy, those kinds of things that I think I'm decent at. So I'll stop there.
No, that's great. Thank you. I've appreciated you sharing on your journey from nonprofit to the profit, certainly in the fractional, different types of roles you've held. What has helped you sustain this journey? So hopefully we can give back our audience maybe that immediate actionable strategy, maybe that tool, something that's in your daily or weekly routine that's helped you stay grounded, perhaps renew yourself, stay motivated, engaged along the way.
Yeah, I like to work. So, sometimes people... It's getting older, but people retire at certain ages, right? So I don't see myself doing that anytime soon. But I think that the things that I like are, having those experiences, having that impact. People should pick a job that they are going to love. There's this saying, you and I know it very well. It's like work-life balance. And I'm doing podcasts as well, and I generally ask that question about what's your thinking about work-life balance. And I'm interviewing mostly CIOs, CTOs, and CEOs, and the response I'm getting is there's not really a thing. That it's very difficult to say, here's my work, here's my life side. And, my point is, if you love your work, then it's like work is part of life. It's not, two separate things. So if you're working, 10 hours one day and then, 11 the next, and then you have, something else you're doing, that it's all part of your life. Now, I'm not saying give up on your family or your sports, your recreation, your arts, whatever it might be. But I think, at least in my opinion, the generations, at least there's certain generations that are kind of testing again the work-life balance, and they're saying that I want to work remotely, I want to only work 40 hours a week. That's fine if that's their decision, but they may be slower in advancement depending on what they're doing. So. I don't want to make it a longer answer than you asked, but that's kind of my thought on that.
Yeah, no, there is a practical consideration here, right? Like just following any passion. We live in a society where, at the end of the day, we have to have a budget to survive. So, so there's that practical element, but I very much appreciate also where in that work is the element of fulfillment for you? Maybe it's not the task, but it's the organization and the connections and the people, as you were talking, or perhaps maybe it is the creative or the building or the execution of a particular skill. So workshopping that, I'm a big proponent of workshop that when you're young. Go out and try a number of things and find what is it that fills you up. I agree. Tino, thank you so much for the conversation and joining me on Still Evolving today. Very much appreciate the opportunity to learn from you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. And Amy, I enjoy speaking with you, and hopefully your audience will feel like they take a little nugget or two from this conversation.
Absolutely, no doubt. Thank you.